Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 30th of November, 2021. All right, everyone, let's get into it. So, I think the biggest piece of news over the last 24 hours is not directly related to crypto, but I think it's a pretty big deal, and I'll outline why. But basically, what the news was that Jack Dorsey is stepping down as Twitter CEO to be replaced by, someone else in the company. I can't remember their name, but it's someone else in the company. They're not getting a CEO from outside the company. Now, this is obviously a very big deal, and I kind of quote tweeted this and said, "This is good for Ethereum," because Jack has been a pretty vocal Bitcoin maximalist for quite a while now, right? He has implied that he thinks Ethereum is a scam before. He has made fun of Ethereum before for not having the kind of like the logo. If you do hashtag ETH, there's no ETH logo there. There was a Ethiopian flag next to it during the Olympics and things like that. So he's obviously not been a big fan. Now, the reason why I think him stepping away is good for Ethereum is because obviously Twitter wants to do more with Web3 with Ethereum because they've done the NFT integration that they've kind of they haven't done it yet, but they've announced it. They've made their own NFTs. They have like Ethereum address. If you go to like the tipping on the product, the lead product designer's Twitter profile, I've actually got a tweet showing it. If I go to my Twitter profile, you can basically see, if I scroll down a bit, you can see if you go click here on Jane's profile, you can see Ethereum address pop up next to Bitcoin address. So obviously, Twitter has a lot of plans for Ethereum Web3, and, I'm not going to say this is the reason Jack Dorsey stepped down, but he's a pretty big Bitcoiner. Like, it's not a side thing for him. It's actually, like, a pretty big part of his life. I mean, he talks about it a lot. He promotes it a lot. His bio is literally just hashtag Bitcoin. There's nothing else in it. So I don't think it's a stretch to say that maybe there were disagreements here about where to take the company, or maybe Jack wants to just focus on other things more than he wants to focus on Twitter. He's also got his other company, Square, and then he's doing all the Bitcoin stuff, and maybe there was disagreements internally about sort of what Twitter's path would be throughout crypto and everything like that. And the best thing about this is that the new CEO coming in is actually was heavily involved in getting those Web3 NFT integrations done and pushed forward. So I think that this is going to be really good for Ethereum going forward for the Web3 vision, to have like a more, I guess, like forward-looking CEO, someone who, as far as I can tell, is not a Bitcoin maximalist, right? And to get like kind of this adoption going. Now, what I thought was quite funny about this is that people were kind of like on two sides about this. People were saying, "Oh, okay, this is good for Ethereum because obviously, Jack's a known Bitcoin maximalist," and then the Bitcoin maximalists were saying, "Oh no, now like Twitter's going to go full kind of like Ethereum, full Web3 or full crypto," which, as I said, I think it is. And I think that's fine. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a very, very good thing for Ethereum, for Twitter, and I think that Twitter is going to be better off for it. So I guess I'm curious to see what Jack does next. Like, does he go full time into doing his Bitcoin stuff, which seems like that's a high chance that he would do that, or does he kind of like take some time off, reevaluate what he wants to do and everything like that? I don't know. I've got no idea. I don't know Jack very well at all. All I know is him from his Twitter presence, of course, and I think that just based on his Twitter presence, Bitcoin is not a side thing for him. It's like literally one of the main focuses of his life. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him do something in the Bitcoin arena. But good for Twitter, good for Ethereum that he stepped down there. All right, I put this tweet out today where I basically I was getting frustrated because no matter how many times I tell people that the gas fees on L1 are like a good thing, and I explain the reasons why, they just, they don't listen to me. Like, a lot of people just don't listen. That's why this is a reason why I stopped replying to people in my kind of like replies here on my tweets and everything like that. But I basically put out this tweet where I said, "You are selling ETH because you think the high gas fees are bearish. I am buying ETH because I understand that Ethereum is burning tens of millions of dollars worth of ETH every day at layer 1 and is scaling for users at layer 2. We are not the same." No matter how many times I repeat this over and over again on the Refuel, in my newsletters, on ETH, on Twitter, doesn't matter how many times I repeat it, there are still so many people who just don't get it. And I don't really understand why, because it's not hard to understand why this is the case. Like, Ethereum layer 1 is a settlement layer. It is the layer for robots, for kind of like layer 2s, for machines. It is not the layer for users. Users have a really cool layer 2 ecosystem that they can use and tap into. So, and then, some people will hit back and say, well, Ethereum was going to scale at layer 1, now the roadmap changed. And it's like, okay, well, the roadmap loosely has been the same for quite a while. But the reason we kind of like chose the roll-up centric roadmap path is because we as an ecosystem believe that it is the best path to scale a blockchain. So it changed based on new information. So what would you rather have happened? Like it not change based on new information and stayed the same, and then we basically centralized Ethereum to achieve scale? Or we kind of like went down a path that ended up not working, and then we wasted all that time doing the R&D? I don't get it. And I think this is simply because a lot of people aren't used to seeing a public development life cycle for things this big. I've used this example before, but could you imagine if you were privy to the public development life cycle of when the iPhone was first conceptualized to production? I think from first conceptualization to production took about 5 years for the original iPhone to kind of like come to fruition there. The amount of features that were cut during that time, the amount of things that were changed during that time in both the hardware and software layer, and the amount of things that were missing from the first iPhone that we all use and love and take for granted today. But that was all done behind closed doors, right? Like no one knew about the iPhone until it was basically ready to be announced and released. Whereas with Ethereum, since day one, or even since before kind of like it was live, it has been a completely open and public development process, completely open source. Everyone can scrutinize everything, and it is done in a decentralized way where it's kind of like a chaotic way. There's no central kind of like person at the top saying what the roadmap is. It's a community coming together to figure out what the best way is to build Ethereum into what we want it to be. So from that perspective, I think that's looking at it from that perspective, you can understand why people may push back against this. But at the same time, I just don't understand why people think that we should go down a worse path just because they think Ethereum should scale at layer 1. It's just not how blockchains scale. Blockchains should scale at the kind of like layer 2, at least scale execution at layer 2. And then leave layer 1 as a settlement layer. But that's not to say that Ethereum is not settling at not scaling at layer 1 either. It's doing sharding at layer 1, but to enhance the layer 2 ecosystem with data sharding. And I still come across people, lots of people actually, who think that sharding is going to solve all of Ethereum's gas fees and it's going to like make Ethereum super scalable and all that sort of stuff. And then when I push back on that and say, well, no, it's going to enhance the layer 2 ecosystem, they kind of push back on that and be like, what? I didn't know about this. What the hell? When did this happen? That roadmap changes happened like years ago, and it's not hard to find this roadmap. You can literally go to ethereum.org and check it out, and you'll be able to see it all there. But also on that note as well, I don't know why people would want Ethereum to scale via sharding at layer 1 anyway, because execution sharding is complex. It breaks composability. It is not exactly like the great path forward. And I just don't get it. I really don't get most of it. I understand from their point of view because they see people see everything be developed publicly, but at the same time, that is the beauty of all of this. It means that you, as an individual, have an opportunity to be involved with Ethereum. Like anyone can submit an EIP, a network change essentially, or Ethereum improvement proposal, which could be included in a network upgrade to do something on the network, whether that be to upgrade something or change something, or put even something as big as EIP 1559. Anyone can do this. You just have to rally support around it and make sure that it's something that it's actually desirable to go into the network. But even if and layer 1 does move slow, don't get me wrong, but even still, you can build at layer 2. And with a layer 2 construction, you can do whatever you want and just like settle to layer 1 Ethereum. And it just gives you so much more freedom, because at layer 1, as I said, you can submit changes, but it's hard. It takes probably years. EIP 1559 took over 2 years to get to mainnet from when it was first proposed. And even before that, there were like instances of Vitalik talking about improving the fee market for years before that. So all in all, it probably took like 4 years from when Vitalik first thought of a new way to do a fee market to when it actually got implemented on mainnet. So if you wanted to do anything else at layer 1, you wanted to do any experimentation there, that's just not going to happen in the short term. But it does happen at layer 2. So there's so many benefits here that I just... these people who kind of like push back, I'm going to keep educating them. I'm going to keep telling them things. And I know there's a lot of you out there that do this as well. But I just kind of like get a little bit frustrated at times. And, I'm not even going to look at the comments of this tweet, because I know a lot of the replies are going to be people complaining about the gas fees, saying, "Oh, this is crap. Like, I want to be able to do stuff at layer 1." And you know what? If you want to do stuff at quote unquote layer one, then there are plenty of kind of like these cheaper EVM sidechains that you can use. But at the same time, they're not going to be cheap forever. Once they fill up, as we saw with Avalanche, they get more expensive to use because they're literally just the same thing as Ethereum. And the problem is that people want to keep using layer one because they're just used to it. But the thing is that most of the people coming into the Ethereum ecosystem going forward are going to be onboarded to layer two. They're not going to even touch layer one, so they're not going to have this issue anymore. So I just think it's kind of like a non kind of like issue. It's not really a talking point that needs to be discussed, ad infinitum. But at the same time, it's something that needs to be refuted, because I really do believe that if people understood Ethereum's roadmap, if people understood why Ethereum has chosen to go down the rollup centric roadmap path, they would understand that it is the best path forward that we know of currently. They will understand why the decisions were made to do this, and they won't, they wouldn't fight Ethereum like they do. But unfortunately, they do that. Unfortunately, a lot of people get their information from crappy sources. A lot of people watch the really kind of like scammy YouTubers, right? The big ones, the ones with like hundreds of thousands and millions of subscribers, who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about a lot of the time, but they spread that information out there and they just confuse all these people. And then there's people like me who have to pick up the scraps later on and kind of like make sure people are thinking about things from the right frame of mind. When, as I said, literally all you need to do to get your head around the Ethereum roadmap is go to ethereum.org, go to the roadmap section, and it's all there, updated. It's got links to everywhere else. You don't even have to kind of like dig much for this. And I know you shouldn't just trust one website to show you things, but as I said, it's got links to other places. You can kind of go read other writings. I mean, Bankless recently did a great blog post. Trent Van Epps did a great blog post in Bankless discussing the Ethereum roadmap that I highlighted on the Refuel. So to me, there's literally zero excuse for not being up to date with it. The only excuse is laziness, because if people are too lazy to go do their own research into the Ethereum roadmap, then people can't help them, right? Like, who can help them in that kind of scenario? But yeah, anyway, I'm going to stop the rambling there for now. I just wanted to kind of like cover that there. I think it's always worth repeating those sorts of things. But anyway, on to more positive news, is some news around the merge. So Tim Beiko posted a blog post today titled "How the Merge Impacts Ethereum's Application Layer." Now, as I've discussed before, the merge is being done in such a way where it's going to have minimal disruption for the application layer on Ethereum. Basically zero disruption, but there are some things like infrastructure providers and some other kind of like stuff out there that needs to make sure that they understand what's changing. And there's very little changes, but still they're kind of like important changes. So this is the blog post for them. But I did want to highlight that whenever you're talking to someone about the merge, and the merge being kind of Ethereum changing from proof of work to proof of stake, you can tell them that literally their experience is not going to be interrupted at all. It's going to be at block blah 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 number, proof of work, and then at block blah 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 number, it's going to be proof of stake. That's all that's changing. The user stuff isn't changing. You're still going to use Ethereum like you use it today, whether that be at layer 1 and layer 2, and users don't have to migrate funds or anything like that. The merge is literally being done in the most simplest way possible to avoid all of that disruption. But for application developers, it's a little bit different, where they have to kind of, and infrastructure providers, they're going to have to be aware of some of the things that are changing, such as kind of like these mining and OMA block fields or uncle fields. That sort of stuff is definitely not something an end user has to worry about. But for those running full nodes and infrastructure, like the Infurias of the world, right? They kind of like definitely need to kind of be aware of this and be aware of how it all works. So that's the first update on the merge. The second one is Adrian Sutton put out another screenshot here with Geth and Teku doing optimistic sync on merge DevNet 1. Fun for two reasons. HTTP tracing is included, showing the actual execution engine calls being made. It looks indistinguishable from full sync at this point because Geth has finished syncing. So again, more progress being made on the merge. As I discussed yesterday, it's happening in the background. There'll be screenshots posted here. I'll keep you guys up to date. I'll be retweeting a lot of these screenshots, but progress is being made very steadily. Community outreach is already being done, with this blog post, as I kind of mentioned before, which is always a good thing to do earlier than later, because you want to make sure that all the parties that are going to be affected by this change are aware of it, can make sure that their infrastructure is all set up to support it, and so that there's like no disruptions for them. But in the proper case, there's literally zero disruption for end users. Maybe some apps may not work because they didn't update their nodes or something like that, or they didn't update their kind of like RPCs or something that they needed to update. But the network itself should be exactly the same pre and post merge. As I said, the only thing changing is the consensus mechanism Everything else stays the same. And even with kind of like all the upgrades coming to the network, for end users, things should never, at layer 1 and even at layer 2, things should never feel different for them. They should never have to migrate funds or anything like that. It should always feel the same. And that's exactly what's being done with sharding and statelessness as well. So I like that path. And that's, again, going back to what I was saying about the Ethereum roadmap. We've chosen to do it this way because it is the safest and securest way to do it, and also the way to do it without causing any disruption for users, because Ethereum is no longer a small network. It is a $500 billion network settling trillions of dollars of value every year with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of users over the course of like a year. So you can't just play hard and fast with it. You can't have users being disrupted. You definitely need to take your time. And that's why these things take longer than we would like, because we're not in Kansas anymore. We definitely need to kind of like take that into account. I think the core developers do. I think the rest of the ecosystem does, and the rest of the ecosystem also understands it. So yeah, really, really cool to see some more merge updates here today. All right, so another massive crypto venture fund has been announced from a former Wall Street banker. It's a $1.5 billion venture fund, a crypto venture fund. Comes in at a smaller kind of like pace than the Paradigm and A16Z funds, which were at $2 and $2.5 billion, or maybe even both of them were $2.5 billion. But still, this is absolutely huge. So this Wall Street banker was from Citigroup. He was a Citigroup executive. His name is Matt Zhang. He launched this venture fund called HiveMind Capital Partners, and apparently they're going to be having a specific focus on 4 different strategies: yield, staking, trading, venture capital investments, and play to earn gaming, which is obviously a very big theme right now, very big kind of like narrative playing out. There's a lot of froth in that market, like a lot of froth in the play to earn market. There was a coin that pumped up to like a $30 billion fully diluted valuation, and there was no product for it. So guys, be careful with these sorts of things. That's all I can say there, because the market's getting crazier again. I mean, just as I'm recording this, ETH's price is like breaking out pretty hard. It's over 4,600 right now. So market's getting crazy again. But I mean, the thing is with these funds is that they represent like a secular kind of shift within crypto and the crypto macro environment. And this is why I don't believe we're getting the long-term bear markets anymore, at least for like ETH, right? And potentially Bitcoin. But I mean, ETH is just absolutely slaughtering Bitcoin at the moment. But just from an ETH perspective, because there's just so much demand and so much money pouring into this ecosystem, and a lot of it makes its way back to ETH. When people take profits from other investments that they make, as I mentioned yesterday, they can either go to cash, of course, but like, why would you want to sit in cash for longer than you had to? Or you can go to ETH. Of course, you're going to go to ETH if you're like, okay, well, I'm taking profits from here, but I'm really bullish on ETH, so I'm going to take profits into ETH. And that's exactly what a lot of people do. It's exactly what I do all the time. A lot of my friends that I know do this, and they do it pretty regularly as well. So that's why you see a lot of things bleed against ETH as well, as I mentioned yesterday. But a lot of these, you may look at this $1.5 billion venture fund and think, okay, well, a lot of this money's not, pretty much all of this money is probably not going to go directly into ETH, but it's going to go into other things and invest in other things. And that money will find its way to ETH. And just kind of like the fact that more money is pouring into this ecosystem means that more money is sloshing around, more money is kind of changing hands. The teams kind of like pay their employees, maybe their employees buy ETH with their kind of like paychecks and things like that. So it all finds its way back to an asset like ETH and other assets, of course, as well. But if you're working in the Ethereum ecosystem and you're kind of like working to whatever layer 2, the app layer, or any kind of stuff like that, you're more likely going to be buying ETH than anything else. So from that perspective, that's how the money kind of like comes back into ETH. But I mean, man, like it's still amazing to see like these massive funds kind of like coming, even I guess at this stage of the market where we've been basically in a bull market for 18 months at this point, right? 18 straight months. I know we had that kind of like crash down during kind of like May and June, but we kind of recovered pretty quickly from that. Like, I'll be honest. I mean, a bear market is kind of, to me anyway, is like a 6 month plus period of downtrending. We downtrended for like, 1 or 2 months, and then we basically just kept going up, and then we went sideways again, and now we seem to be going up again. So this kind of like, raises being done here doesn't surprise me too much. But again, it's still kind of like wild to see it's coming at such a late stage, or maybe it's not even a late stage, just not coming so kind of like so much into the bull market since it's been 18 months. So yeah, really, really cool to see that. And as I've said before about these raises, about these funds, they have to deploy this money. They don't have a choice. Their investors want this money deployed. They want to make a return. And that's the whole reason of having a fund to begin with, is to invest that money. You don't just sit on it and do nothing with it. So yeah, as I said, this money is finding its way into the market. It's going to find its way back to ETH. And I think all this sort of stuff is just like bullish for ETH in the end. So Loopring has put out a really cool guide here. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to on YouTube, where you can learn how to connect MetaMask to Loopring's L2, deposit to Loopring L2, transfer between L2s, and withdraw back to Ethereum L1. Now you can click on this kind of like link here. It'll be linked in the YouTube description to watch this video. I thought it was a really great video. I kind of like had a brief view of it, and then basically just skipped over it because obviously I don't need this guide for myself. But the amazing thing is that I just thought it was very straightforward, and we need more of this. We need more of kind of like this education around how to onboard to L2s, and we need obviously the centralized exchanges to support this to make this even easier. Because imagine having an onboarding guide where you just say to users, hey, Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, whatever, put your funds in there, then withdraw them to this layer 2, and there you go. You're on layer 2. You can experience cheap and fast transactions with the security of Ethereum. So yeah, but in the meantime, these videos, explaining the more detailed steps of how to get onto something like a Loopring L2 is definitely much needed, and I definitely recommend going and giving this a watch. All right, so Argent announced yesterday that they are the first smart contract to be deployed on StarkNet's mainnet Alpha, and this was an Argent account. So basically, you can see the wallet here on GitHub and the contract here. This is really cool because Argent has been working with StarkWare for a little while now. They've also been working with ZK Sync, of course, but it's really cool to see that they're kind of like the first smart contract to be deployed. As I kind of like have mentioned, did I cover this yesterday? No, I actually don't think I covered this yesterday. This happened after. This is funny. This happened after I kind of recorded yesterday's refuel, and for some reason I don't have it in my tab, so I'm going to bring it up quickly, guys. I should have discussed this earlier, but it related to the Argent thing. The StarkNet Alpha is on mainnet. I don't know how this didn't make it into the video. It's very, very weird. Very weird. But yeah, the first version of StarkNet Alpha is on mainnet, and that's what I was talking about with this Argent kind of like smart contract being deployed here. So you can see all the details about it here. This is a very early alpha version. This is the one I've been talking about. I did say it would go live late November, and it went live November 29th, so I'll take some points for that. I'm just kidding. But it basically is a developer platform right now. There's not much kind of end users can do, and it kind of like it does support general computation and composability out of the box, but additional features will be rolled out kind of like over time. So right now, as I said, this is kind of like a developer thing. Not really much me and you can do on it. We can still use StarkWare's products like Immutable X and DYDX and all that sort of stuff there. They're all kind of live and have been for quite a while. But in terms of like StarkNet itself, still probably going to be a little while away before we're using it regularly, which is fine. I mean, these are the first steps, right? These are the kind of like first steps to getting something like this out there. And obviously it's a big deal because it is a generalized ZK platform, and we've been waiting for generalized our ZK rollup platform, and we've been waiting for these things to go live for a little while now, and it's come a lot sooner than a lot of us would have expected too. So very, very cool to see this, and yeah, sorry for not talking about it earlier. I definitely somehow missed this in my tabs, but if you want to learn kind of like more about it, you can check out the blog post. There's kind of like a roadmap here. There's links to all these different things, links to the Discord and everything like that, so definitely go check that one out. So a tweet here from Brantley from the ENS team. So Budweiser, the company that purchased the beer.eth ENS name, I think it was a little while ago. I did talk about it on the refuel when it happened, have changed their Twitter name to beer.eth. You can see here, Budweiser USA is beer.eth. And they're doing NFTs as well, if I remember correctly. I think you can kind of like see some details about it. I think they sold out. Yeah, this thing here. So they had like Budweiser cans, Heritage Edition collection on OpenSea, which is really cool to see. So you could have bought some NFTs there. Again, another example of a company that is not crypto native getting involved with crypto native things. The fact that they changed their ENS name, their Twitter name to their ENS name being beer.eth is really cool to see. I always love seeing ENS names everywhere, all over Twitter. It's just, it kind of like signals to people that you know what you're doing within the Ethereum ecosystem, that you're deep into the Ethereum ecosystem, and you have kind of like an affiliation there. It's kind of like a kind of like tribe signaling thing as well. not in the tribes, like the bad tribe sense, but like the good tribe sense. And I just always love seeing it, especially when it's big companies doing it. I'd love to see places like Coinbase do this as well, where they have like Coinbase.eth or some of the other kind of like major exchanges and stuff like that. It just sends a strong signal. It's good advertising too, right? I mean, think about the amount of people who follow Budweiser's account and interact with it, and then we'll see beer.eth, and they'll be like, okay, what's beer.eth? They might Google it, they might check it out, and same thing goes for the NFTs as well. So this is just like a very cool new user onboarding vehicle, and I'm pretty excited to see it as well. Just as excited as Brantley was. I mean, and the tweet got a lot of engagement as well, so it seems a lot of excitement out there for these sorts of things. But yeah, who's going to be the next company that does this? I'm sure Budweiser is not going to be the last. I'm sure there's going to be plenty more out there. As I mentioned yesterday, Coinbase's NFT platform is definitely going to work to bring in a lot of new kind of like people into the ecosystem, because they're going to partner with big companies. Maybe they're even going to partner with Budweiser now and do more NFT jobs with them. We'll have to see. But yeah, really, really cool to see that out of Budweiser here. And the last thing to talk about is another video from Hideyoshi Moria with him kind of like unlocking his home door using kind of like his ENS ownership. So you can see here, signs a message, and that message, signing that message unlocks his door. You can see the door being unlocked. So yeah, I think yesterday's video was about him unlocking his Tesla or something like that, or starting the Tesla. So, I mean, this again is another example of things kind of like being, the crypto world kind of like merging with the real world. And the funny thing is about unlocking the door is that a lot of you may not know this, and I think I'm getting this right. But basically, in 2016, there was a company or a project called StarkNet that wanted to do this. They basically wanted to be like a DAO, and they wanted to kind of like have like a smart unlocking system tied to your Ethereum address for kind of like physical locks and stuff like that. And StarkNet was a major player behind the DAO, and the infamous the DAO that got drained and led to the Ethereum Classic hard fork drama and all that sort of stuff. So funny to see us come full circle back to this, and I think it's actually the right time for something like this to kind of take off. We have the tools, we have the infrastructure, and signing an Ethereum kind of message doesn't cost any gas, by the way, guys. Like, it's not going to cost you $5,000 to unlock your home in gas fees, right? I see those jokes made all the time, but yeah, so this is just awesome to see. I hope to see more of these sorts of stuff. I love it when people tinker with kind of like the quote-unquote Internet of Things and connect it to the Ethereum world, because it just shows that we kind of like breaching past the kind of digitally native stuff and going into the physical world, which is always awesome to see. And we're going to see more of that with the metaverse stuff and augmented reality and virtual reality, but it's blending into kind of like real life, especially with AR. But even these sorts of things get me really excited to see as well. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.